Good afternoon, everyone. This is Dr. William Lee, and today I'm going to talk about visceral fat because most people completely misunderstand belly fat, especially visceral belly fat. You cannot force your body to burn it. You can punish yourself with harder workouts, stricter diets, longer fasts, and more discipline. But visceral fat does not respond to force. It responds to signals. And the most powerful signals your body receives all day happen in the first 45 to 60 minutes after you wake up. Think of your body like a control room. Every morning, before you eat, before you move much, before the world fully hits you, your nervous system asks one critical question: am I safe today, or am I under threat? That answer determines whether your metabolism opens the door to fat burning or locks it shut and shifts into fat storage and defense. This is why two people can eat the same food, fast the same hours, even exercise the same way, yet one loses visceral fat and the other doesn't. The difference is not willpower, it's morning chemistry. When you wake up, cortisol naturally rises. Cortisol is not bad, it's a survival hormone. It helps you get out of bed, mobilize energy, and stay alert. But if cortisol spikes too high, too fast, or stays elevated too long, it sends one clear message to your body: danger. And when the body perceives danger, it does three things automatically. It holds on to fat, especially visceral fat. It raises insulin resistance, and it slows long-term repair. Visceral fat is not just stored energy, it is protective fat. It wraps around organs, produces inflammatory chemicals, and acts like a shield. Your body keeps it when it thinks survival is at risk. So if your mornings are chaotic, rushed, dehydrated, overstimulated, caffeinated, and stressful, you are unknowingly telling your body every single day: do not let go of this fat. This is why mornings matter more than people realize. Morning is the thermostat. Morning sets the operating system. Morning decides whether your metabolism runs in burn mode or store mode for the next 12 to 16 hours. And here's the part that surprises people. This decision is made before breakfast, before calories matter, before carbs matter, before fasting matters. The nervous system makes its choice first, and metabolism follows orders. Over the years, watching thousands of patients struggle with visceral fat, insulin resistance, fatty liver, and stubborn belly weight, I've learned this: the people who win are not the ones who do more. They are the ones who send the right signals early. There are 5 morning signals that matter more than anything else. They are simple. They are biological. And when done correctly, they lower cortisol, stabilize insulin, calm the nervous system, and make visceral fat release possible later in the day. Today, I'll explain all the signals one by one, slowly. So please take a few minutes of your day today and watch this important lecture till the very end. The first signal your body receives in the morning has nothing to do with food, exercise, or motivation. It has to do with hydration and minerals, and it happens within minutes of waking up. Most people get this wrong, and the consequences show up later as stubborn visceral fat, cravings, and a metabolism that feels stuck. When you sleep for 6 to 8 hours, you are not taking in water, sodium, potassium, or magnesium. Meanwhile, your kidneys continue filtering blood, your lungs release moisture, and your nervous system stays active. By the time you wake up, you are mildly dehydrated and electrolyte depleted, even if you feel fine. Now, here's the key point. Dehydration is interpreted by the body as stress. The moment your brain senses low blood volume or low sodium, cortisol rises to compensate. Cortisol's job is to help you survive low-resource situations. It raises blood sugar, tightens blood vessels, and tells fat cells to hold on to energy, especially visceral fat. So when someone wakes up, skips water, and immediately reaches for coffee or their phone, they are stacking stress on top of stress. Cortisol rises higher. Insulin resistance increases. Lipoprotein lipase, the enzyme that traps fat inside visceral fat cells, stays active. Fat burning is effectively shut down before the day even begins. This is why I say the morning is not about boosting metabolism. It's about lowering unnecessary stress signals. The simplest way to do that is to rehydrate properly before anything else. Not with ice-cold water, not with sweetened drinks, and not with caffeine. The body responds best to room temperature water with a small amount of minerals. A glass or two of water with a pinch of salt, or naturally mineralized water, sends a powerful message to your nervous system. Resources are available. There is no emergency. When that message lands, cortisol begins to fall instead of spike. And when cortisol falls, something important happens. Your body becomes more willing to release fat later in the day. Insulin sensitivity improves. Hunger hormones calm down. The defensive posture of visceral fat starts to soften. This is not theory. You see it clinically. People who hydrate properly in the morning often report fewer cravings, better energy without caffeine, and easier fasting, even if nothing else changes. Think of it like this. If you wake up in the desert with no water, your first instinct is not to burn stored fuel. It's to conserve. But if water is plentiful, the body relaxes and becomes flexible again. Morning hydration is telling your body you are not in a desert. Comment below the word hydration if you're still here listening to me. I love people who stay attentive throughout my lecture. Also, if you're new to my channel, please make sure you leave me a like on this video and hit that subscribe button so more people can see this informative lecture. Now, the second signal your body is waiting for in the morning is sunlight. And this one is far more powerful than most people realize. Light is not just something you see. It is biological information. When light hits your eyes and your skin early in the day, it tells your brain one critical thing. The day has begun and the environment is predictable. That message immediately travels to the hypothalamus, the command center that controls cortisol, insulin, melatonin, and your circadian rhythm. If that signal is clear and timely, cortisol rises briefly in a healthy, controlled way and then falls. If that signal is missing or delayed, cortisol becomes chaotic, spiking at the wrong times and staying elevated longer than it should. Here's why this matters for visceral fat. Cortisol is not a bad hormone. It's a survival hormone. But chronic mistimed cortisol keeps your body locked in threat mode. And when the body perceives threat, it does not burn visceral fat. It protects it. Visceral fat is emergency fuel. The body will not let go of it if it thinks danger is nearby. Morning sunlight is how you tell your body there is no danger. When light enters your eyes within the first 30 to 60 minutes after waking, it anchors your circadian clock. This sets off a cascade. Melatonin shuts off properly. Cortisol peaks and then declines. Insulin sensitivity improves, and appetite hormones like ghrelin and leptin begin to normalize. Later in the day, this same signal helps melatonin rise naturally at night, improving sleep, and better sleep further lowers cortisol the next day. You can't separate these systems. Sleep, stress, fat storage, and insulin resistance are all wired together. Now, contrast this with what most people do. They wake up in a dark room, they check their phone, artificial blue light hits their eyes, but without the full spectrum signal of the sun. The brain gets confused, cortisol rises, but without direction. The nervous system stays on edge, visceral fat stays locked. Even worse, scrolling through email or social media immediately activates the dopamine stress loop. The brain interprets novelty, comparison, and urgency as potential threats. Cortisol rises again. You haven't eaten anything yet, but your metabolism is already defensive. This is why I tell people don't look at your phone before you look at the sun. You don't need to stare at the sun. You just need to be outside or near a window, letting natural light reach your eyes. 5 to 10 minutes is enough on a bright day. On cloudy days, a little longer. If possible, expose some skin as well, hands, face, or arms. This single habit improves insulin sensitivity more reliably than many supplements. It makes fasting easier, it reduces evening cravings, and over time, it makes visceral fat more willing to leave because the body feels rhythm, predictability, and safety. Think of sunlight as resetting the thermostat of your metabolism. If you set it correctly in the morning, the rest of the day runs more smoothly without effort. Before I continue, tell me about your sunlight intake. How many minutes do you spend under morning sunlight exposure? And if you're enjoying the session so far, please make sure you like this video and share it with someone who can get benefits. Now, the third morning signal is the one people resist the most, delaying caffeine. And I understand why. Coffee feels like survival for many people, but the timing of caffeine matters far more than the caffeine itself, especially when visceral fat is the goal. When you wake up, your body naturally produces cortisol. This is called the cortisol awakening response. It's supposed to happen. Cortisol helps you mobilize energy, raise blood pressure slightly, and transition from sleep to alertness. Under normal conditions, this cortisol peak is brief and then begins to fall within the first hour. If you add caffeine on top of that peak, you don't get more energy. You get excess stress signaling. Caffeine works by blocking adenosine, the molecule that tells your brain you're tired. But it also amplifies cortisol and adrenaline. If cortisol is already high, and in many people it is chronically high, adding caffeine immediately tells the body we are under threat and need to stay alert. That message directly interferes with fat release. Here's the physiology. High cortisol activates lipoprotein lipase in visceral fat tissue, the enzyme that pulls fat into storage and keeps it there. It also increases insulin resistance, especially in the liver. So even if you're fasting, your body behaves as if it needs to conserve energy, not burn it. This is why some people fast, drink black coffee immediately upon waking, and still struggle with belly fat. They're fasting, but their hormones are saying emergency. Now, here's the good news. You don't have to give up coffee. You just have to respect timing. If you wait 60 to 90 minutes after waking, cortisol has already begun to decline naturally. At that point, caffeine no longer stacks stress. It enhances alertness without pushing the system into danger mode. The same coffee now feels smoother, fewer jitters, less anxiety, better focus, and importantly, less interference with fat burning. This delay also protects muscle. Chronic cortisol combined with caffeine and fasting can increase muscle breakdown in susceptible people, especially those under stress or under eating protein. By delaying caffeine, you reduce unnecessary catabolism while still getting the cognitive benefits later. What should you do instead during that first hour? Hydration, sunlight, calm movement. Let your nervous system settle into the day before you stimulate it. Think of caffeine like a volume knob, not an on switch. If the volume is already loud, turning it up doesn't improve the music. It creates noise. When cortisol is lower, caffeine works the way people expect it to. For those who truly feel unwell without immediate caffeine, green tea is often a better transitional option. It contains less caffeine and includes L-theanine, which blunts the cortisol response. But the goal remains the same. Don't spike stress before your body has stabilized. When you align caffeine with your biology instead of fighting it, fasting becomes easier, hunger becomes quieter, and visceral fat stops acting like protected territory. Tell me in the comments, when do you usually wake up and consume your caffeine? Let's learn about each other's current routine. The fourth morning signal is movement, but not the kind most people think of. This is where a lot of well-intentioned people sabotage their own fat loss. They wake up already stressed, underslept, dehydrated, and then they force intense exercise, hard cardio, boot camps, or heavy HIIT, thinking they're burning fat. What they're often doing instead is teaching the body to defend it. In the early morning, your nervous system is still transitioning. Cortisol is naturally higher, blood sugar is lower, muscles and connective tissue are colder and stiffer. If you apply high-intensity stress at this moment, the body interprets it as threat, not training. Threat equals cortisol. Cortisol equals fat storage, especially visceral fat. This doesn't mean exercise is bad, it means timing and intensity matter. The goal of morning movement is not to exhaust yourself. It is to tell your nervous system, I'm safe, I'm mobile, and the environment is under control. Low-intensity movement does exactly that. A relaxed walk, light stretching, mobility work, yoga, or gentle body weight movements activate muscles without spiking stress hormones. This kind of movement improves insulin sensitivity by opening glucose transporters in muscle cells. It increases fat oxidation without triggering a cortisol surge, and it enhances lymphatic flow, which helps clear inflammatory signals associated with visceral fat. Think of it like warming up the orchestra before the performance. If you blast the drums before tuning the strings, everything sounds chaotic. But if you warm up slowly, the whole system plays better later. There's also a nervous system component that's often overlooked. Gentle movement activates the parasympathetic system, the rest and digest state. This shifts your body away from survival mode. When the parasympathetic system is active, fat release improves because the body no longer feels the need to hoard energy. This is why some people notice that their waist measurement drops more from walking than from aggressive workouts. It's not about calories burned. It's about hormonal permission. Hard workouts have their place, but later in the day, when cortisol is lower, body temperature is higher, and glycogen availability is better. Morning is for alignment, not punishment. Another benefit of gentle morning movement is appetite regulation. People who move calmly in the morning often find that hunger is delayed naturally. Ghrelin, the hunger hormone, settles down. Fasting becomes easier without willpower. And when you do eat later, insulin response is smoother. Visceral fat is deeply tied to inflammation and stress signaling. You don't attack it away. You convince the body it's no longer needed. If you've been doing everything right but still can't lose belly fat, ask yourself this: am I training my body to feel safe, or am I training it to brace? The fifth and most underestimated morning signal is dopamine control, and it may be the most powerful one of all. This is where modern life quietly destroys fat loss before breakfast even happens. The moment you wake up, your brain is in a highly plastic, suggestible state. Whatever input you give it first sets the emotional and hormonal tone for hours. If the first thing you do is grab your phone, emails, news, social media messages, you trigger a dopamine spike followed by a crash. Dopamine is the anticipation neurotransmitter. It's not pleasure itself. It's the chasing of pleasure. When you overstimulate dopamine early, you create instability in the nervous system. Instability equals perceived danger. When the brain senses unpredictability, alerts, bad news, comparison, urgency, it activates stress pathways. Cortisol rises, adrenaline rises, blood sugar rises, and once again, visceral fat gets the signal to stay put. This is why people who are disciplined with food and exercise still struggle with belly fat. Their nervous system is being hijacked every morning before their feet hit the floor. Early dopamine overload also disrupts appetite regulation. It increases cravings later in the day, especially for sugar and refined carbs. That's not a lack of willpower. That's neurochemistry. The brain is trying to restabilize dopamine by seeking quick rewards through food. When you delay phone use, even by 30 to 60 minutes, you allow dopamine to rise naturally through light, movement, and internal motivation. This creates a much more stable neurochemical baseline. Stable dopamine leads to stable insulin. Stable insulin allows fat release. Think of dopamine like fire. A small, controlled flame warms the house. A sudden explosion burns it down. Morning phone use is an explosion. There's also a circadian rhythm component here. Cortisol has a natural peak in the early morning. That peak is healthy if it's smooth. But when you add digital stress on top of it, the peak becomes a spike. Spikes lead to crashes. Crashes lead to hunger, fatigue, and fat storage. Instead of checking your phone, do something boring and grounding. Sit in silence, stretch, walk outside, drink water, let your thoughts wander. This tells your brain there is no emergency, and when the brain feels safe, the body releases stored energy. This is the core principle behind all sustainable fat loss. Safety precedes release. You cannot force visceral fat to leave through discipline alone. You have to remove the signals that told the body to store it in the first place. Comment below the word "I agree" if the first thing you check after waking up is your phone. Don't be shy. We are all here for learning and improving. So now let's step back and connect all 5 signals. Hydration and minerals calm the stress response. Sunlight anchors your circadian rhythm. Delaying caffeine prevents artificial cortisol spikes. Gentle movement signals safety. Dopamine control stabilizes the brain. Together, these signals flip the body into a fat-burning state without effort. Now let me put this together into a simple, realistic morning routine. Nothing extreme, nothing complicated. Just a sequence that aligns your biology instead of fighting it. Think of this as setting the thermostat for the day. Once it's set correctly, the rest happens almost automatically. When you wake up, the first thing you do is hydrate. 1 to 2 glasses of water, ideally with a pinch of mineral salt or electrolytes. This immediately lowers stress hormones and improves blood flow. You're telling your kidneys and adrenal glands, we're safe. Resources are available. That alone can reduce morning cortisol significantly. Next comes light exposure. Within the first 30 minutes, get sunlight in your eyes, not through a window, outside if possible. Even 5 to 10 minutes is enough. This anchors your circadian rhythm, improves insulin sensitivity later in the day, and helps cortisol rise and fall smoothly instead of spiking and crashing. Then comes movement, but not punishment. A slow walk, light stretching, mobility work. Nothing that leaves you breathless. 10 to 20 minutes is plenty. This activates fat-burning enzymes without triggering stress hormones. You're telling your muscles, we may need energy today. And the body responds by mobilizing fat, especially visceral fat. Only after that do you introduce caffeine, if you choose to have it. Delaying caffeine by even 60 to 90 minutes prevents artificial cortisol amplification. At that point, coffee enhances fat oxidation instead of blocking it. Coffee becomes a tool, not a crutch. And finally, dopamine discipline. No phone, no emails, no social media during this first window. This is non-negotiable if you're serious about visceral fat. You don't need motivation, you need neurochemical stability. Once the nervous system is calm, fat loss becomes easy. Now let me be very clear about what to avoid, because people undo all of this without realizing it. Avoid hard workouts first thing in the morning if you're already stressed, underslept, or insulin resistant. Avoid checking your phone in bed. Avoid instant caffeine on an empty, dehydrated body. Avoid rushing. Avoid urgency. Fat loss does not happen when the body feels threatened. It happens when the body feels safe enough to let go. This is why alignment beats discipline every single time. You don't need more willpower. You need better signals. Once you set your morning up this way, everything else becomes easier. Hunger becomes more predictable. Cravings decrease, blood sugar stabilizes, energy improves, and visceral fat, the most stubborn inflammatory fat, finally gets access to the exit door. You don't force fat loss. You remove the reasons your body was holding on to fat in the first place. So if you've been doing everything right and still struggling, don't work harder. Work earlier. Fix the first hour of your day, and the rest of your metabolism will follow. Now, if you've watched my full lecture today, I salute your attention span, because nowadays people can't even stay focused on something for a few minutes. Go ahead in the comment section and tell me what was the one best thing you learned today. I'd love to hear that. And if you think today's lecture was beneficial and informative, please make sure you subscribe to my channel and also hit that like button. Thanks for joining me in today's lecture, and I'll see you in the next.